turn off your mobile phones or switch them to silent mode. I want to thank Neta over there and Omer, our intern, for arranging this meeting. And those of you who are not members yet or want to renew their membership, Neta will be more than happy to help you. We're very pleased to host again Dr. Khalil Shikaki, who is the director of the Palestinian Center for Public
Policy and Survey Research. For Policy and Survey Research.
The Policy and Surveys Institute, who has been running polls for the last 25 years or so among the Palestinians, and has become really the most trusted and professional voice of the Palestinian public opinion. The timing is great today that PLO is meeting in Ramallah, and we are just waiting for, in the wake of President Trump's declaration, we're waiting for Vice President Pence's visit. So there's a lot of things going on, so very timely. Thank you again for coming, and please share with us the recent results you have.
Thank you very much. We have conducted a recent survey immediately after the declaration by the US President recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The survey was actually conducted immediately the next day, and it focused on that issue, as well as on the issue of reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas and the effort to reunify the West Bank and Gaza. Before the story broke about Jerusalem, the story about reconciliation was, of course, the most important one in Palestinian discourse. And now, the one that is dominating the debate is what to do about the American statement. We basically wanted to assess whether the statement had made any impact on several issues. And the findings indicate that indeed the statement by the US President had an impact on 4 issues that we can assess at this point based on this single survey. Perhaps one of the most immediate is the impact on the Palestinian leadership. The impact on Abbas himself, his popularity, his standing. The second has been on the impact of perception regarding the role of violence versus the role of diplomacy. And the third is the perception regarding the main regional players, the Saudis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, and how the public perceives them now after the American statement. And finally, regarding the US role itself, to what extent Palestinians believe that the US ideas or role in mediation would be welcome, would be acceptable, and so on. So these are the 4 areas that we have data on. The first one, regarding Abbas, shows clearly that the declaration by the US has significantly further weakened the president, the Palestinian president. During the last 2-3 years, President Abbas has been losing popular support. We found at times during the last 2 years that 2/3 of the public, I said this I think the last time or the time before, when I was here, 2/3 wanted him to resign. This survey, 70% want him to resign. Well, this is the first time that we have found such a large percentage of Palestinians wanting President Abbas to resign. It's unprecedented. We have never seen his popularity going down as we find in this survey. If elections are held tomorrow, the two contenders were Abbas and Hamas's most popular leader, Ismail Haniyeh. Haniyeh would easily win with 14 points between the two. That's a significant gap between Abbas and Haniyeh, and it shows that now we can't be 100% sure that this is due to the American statement, but examining every other issue that we could not find any other factor that can account for such a decline in the standing of Abbas. And therefore we believe that the public essentially is punishing Abbas, and we believe it is punishing him because he indicated in the past trust in the American efforts. And the public, according to our previous surveys, has been very skeptical about the American role. But the public believe that Abbas is putting his trust and confidence in the Trump administration. And I think now that the Trump administration had said what it said, the public wanted to punish Abbas for his misjob. What the public, it seems to me, again, this is my own speculation, is perceiving as a misjudgment of the president. The second important area where we find significant change is on the question of the violence versus diplomacy. Now, up until this latest survey, if you recall, there was at the end of 2015 and during part of at least the first half of 2016, our surveys show, first of all, there was a lot of violence, stabbings and ramming and so on. And our surveys themselves, starting in September 15, started to show significant increase in Palestinian support for violence, and the belief that violence is more effective than diplomacy in helping Palestinians gain end of occupation and building a Palestinian state. So this is a question that we follow up all the time to examine the extent to which people believe that violence is as effective or less or more effective than diplomacy in helping Palestinians achieve their rights. So again, after the statement, we wanted to see where things stood. Now, before the statement, 3 months ago, 35%, around slightly more than 1/3 of the public said violence is the way to go. And a similar percentage believed in diplomacy. The rest believed in nonviolence. This survey shows an increase by at least a quarter in those who believe violence is the way to go. A return to armed intifada as the best means of ending occupation and building a Palestinian state. Today, this stands at approximately 44-45% compared to about 35% 3 months ago. That's a significant increase. It is paralleled by a similar decrease, slightly less, in the belief that diplomacy is effective. Today, slightly more than a quarter believes that diplomacy remains the most effective means of ending occupation and building a state.
Just a question. All the data is online?
Yes.
In your
our website.
Your website. So just that you know, you're not missing anything if you're not writing, because it's all there. Thank you.
So the belief in violence has increased from slightly more than 1/3 to slightly less than half, and the belief in diplomacy has decreased from a slightly less than 1/3, from about 1/3 to slightly more than a quarter. That's a major change. Obviously, we have no idea whether this will continue, but again, we can't attribute this increase in support for violence, decrease in support for diplomacy to any other factor other than the statement. We can't find any other important change that had happened during recently that would account for such a change. The third is about regional players. Now, here we're talking about the Saudi position, the Egyptian position, the Jordanian position. We're focused on the pro-US allies, those allies in the Arab, in the region, who work with the US. And we wanted to see whether they still have credibility among Palestinians. Now, in previous surveys, there was a lot of questioning by Palestinians of the credibility of these players. But there was still sufficient number of Palestinians who believed that the role of the Saudis and the Egyptians and the Jordanians would be positive in promoting a peace agreement and working with the Americans to promote a peace agreement that would be acceptable to the Palestinians. What we find in this survey is perhaps one of the most shocking, is that as the public is punishing Abbas, it is actually punishing the Saudis and the Egyptians and the Jordanians even more so. There is a perception that the Palestinians cannot trust any of those, and these are very, very large numbers. For the first time, we're talking about 70% to 80% or more who believe that these countries cannot be trusted to protect Palestinian interests. Let me come to the fourth issue, in which we have found some change as well, and then I come back to the regional issue again. We asked about the American role. I mean, we've been asking about the American role after every new administration. And we've asked about the Trump administration before, so we were able to assess whether the statement had made any difference. And it did. It did have a very significant difference. The credibility of the US role has plummeted significantly in this survey, where today we find about 3/4 who believe the administration will not even propose any peace plans. More than 90% believe the American statement is a threat to Palestinian national interests, about Jerusalem, I mean. Even if the Americans do propose a peace plan, 86% believe this American plan will not meet the basic Palestinian need for ending occupation and building a state. Okay, now we wanted to take this idea that the Americans might come up with a plan tomorrow. We wanted to see what the public thinks. We have not outlined what the plan is. We just wanted the public to tell us what it thinks. If the Americans do come up with a plan, whether based on what they know about the administration, this plan would meet or not meet basic needs. And then we wanted to know whether the public thinks Abbas will accept that plan, and whether the major Arab countries that support the pro-Israel, the US allies in the region would also support it. So here's the plan that has less than 10% support among the public. Again, nobody knows what the plan is, but only 10% are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. When we asked whether Abbas will support it, half said Abbas will accept it. As you can see, the disconnect between the public and the president, the perception of the public is that while this is bad, nonetheless, their president will actually accept it. Half of the public thinks that. Okay, now when we asked about Egypt and Saudi Arabia, and whether Egypt and Saudi Arabia would accept it, 70% said they will. So here again is where the American statement, it seems to me, had done damage on all, assuming if this is now my own analysis of what we are finding in terms of the impact on any effort by the Americans to promote a peace agreement. If the Americans have a peace agreement hidden somewhere, and they plan tomorrow to unveil, to reveal to us this plan, then they have done damage already to their ability to market this plan. They have weakened the Palestinian interlocutor, They have weakened the regional powers that would have to have a role in marketing it. They have weakened the Palestinian perception of their own, the American role, and generally have created a pro-violence environment that could make marketing this agreement unsuccessful. So overall, these findings indicate that the administration, it seems, has not managed this question of what to do about Jerusalem effectively, at least in terms of the Palestinian side of the equation. Obviously, on the Israeli side of the equation, things are different, but that only, unfortunately, increases the gap between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Okay. On the second area that we have covered, reconciliation, we find significant optimism among the Palestinian public compared to where...
Reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas.
Yes. This is not about Israel and Palestine.
No, just...
The reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas clearly indicate the public feels today that the chances for reconciliation today are greater. 3 months ago, only a third said reconciliation will succeed. Today, half of the public says it will succeed. So there is another half that's still skeptical about reconciliation, but compared to where things were, this is a significant increase, more than 50% increase in the level of optimism regarding reconciliation. When we dig deeper into this optimism, we find that it doesn't extend to every aspect of reconciliation. For example, most of the public is not optimistic that the reconciliation government will be able to control security in Gaza. So the public still believes reconciliation is successful, even though it doesn't think that control over security will be doable. The public fully supports, by the way, that the reconciliation government will take control of the entire security sector in Gaza and the civil sector. But the public thinks that the PA reconciliation government must pay the salaries of those who have worked in the past for Hamas government. This is one of the issues that is at the moment impeding the efforts of reconciliation. There's clearly the public on the one hand stands with the reconciliation government that it must have full control over Gaza, including on the official security sector. But at the same time, it also takes the position that Hamas advocates, which says that the reconciliation government must pay the salary of all the civil and security sectors that have worked under Hamas in the past in the Gaza Strip. Now, where there is a significant gap, again, with the disconnect that I mentioned earlier between the Palestinian leadership and the public with regard to reconciliation, is when it comes to what to do about the armed factions in Gaza. This is one of two areas where there is a significant disconnect. On this one, much more than the second one. I'll come to the second one in a minute. But on the question of what should happen to armed groups in Gaza, should they be disarmed, as the president is calling for? We asked the public whether it supports the position that says there should be one government and one gun, or whether the factions that are armed in Gaza today should be allowed to continue to remain in place. More than 70% said they should remain in place and should not be disarmed. So that's a major blow and a major area of disconnect between the president and the official PA position and the public. The second area where there is a significant disconnect, not as much as this one, but significant nonetheless, is on the idea of forming a national unity government. The public says that's a very good idea. We should have a national unity government. There is a significant support for that. But when we said, okay, what government platform should this government have? Is it Abbas's or somebody else's? Only 43% said Abbas's. 50% said somebody else's. We didn't identify whose platform it should be, but clearly it is not, there is no majority in favor of a platform for the national unity government that would be based on Abbas's ideas and vision. That's another area where the president is having a hard time. There's one third area, it's not as bad as these two, and that relates to the Hamdallah government today and whether it is sufficiently acting to promote reconciliation. 51% of the public says the Hamdallah government should resign unless it removes all the sanctions, the PA imposed sanctions on the Gaza Strip. So clearly the public is having a hard time believing in the sincerity of the government regarding reconciliation, as long as the sanctions that Abbas imposed more than 6 months ago on Gaza have not been removed. These sanctions include limits on how much electricity the PA would pay for Israeli supplied electricity, and in terms of the number of people who have been, whose salaries have been reduced or who have been sent into retirement, or the number of people who are allowed, the number of patients who are allowed to leave Gaza for hospitals in Israel or in the West Bank. There has been limitations. These are the three areas where the PA 6-7 months ago imposed sanctions on Gaza in order to pressure Hamas, and the public today believes the PA should remove all the sanctions and basically says if the government, Hamdallah government, does not remove them, then it must resign. So these are the main findings that we have. I'd be happy to, if I miss something, you ask, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay.
Have you tried to break down the elements in the American declaration, the more positive elements in the eyes of the Palestinians, such as not defining the borders or not talking about unified Jerusalem, or is it all perceived as a totally negative declaration?
We thought about doing that. We have not done that, and I'll tell you why. We thought that this would not be a good time to ask about that people are blinded at the moment by the shock of the statement that they will not see the gray shades in the statement. That even if we ask now, what we will get is basically a black and white statement rather than gray shades. But obviously, if things do quiet down, if the Americans do clarify their position further, if the Americans are to begin to put ideas out or do something that would help the Palestinians understand that the Americans are not fully one-sided. I'm not saying there is any chance that this would happen, but I'm saying if the Americans, if the Trump administration is to try to do that, I think things might shift and we might begin to see people looking into these nuances in the American statement.
Yes, please.
Going back to your first, the percentages and violence and so on, to what extent is it dependent upon socioeconomic issues?
Well, socioeconomic variables are obviously there all the time. So what changes when there is a significant increase like this, it certainly cannot be attributed to that. What we have is basically a stable 1/3 or so. This is true during the last 10, 12 years. Where under stable conditions, about 1/3 of the Palestinians would support violence. Now, if we are to look at this 1/3 putting aside the change that we saw recently, just this 1/3, whether it is driven by socioeconomic factors, the answer is no, it is not. We find that the main base of support for violence relates to the value system. The Islamists in Palestinian society, those who are religious and those who believe that religion and state must go hand in hand, they tend to support violence in large percentages. Secular nationalist forces, on the other hand, tend to be very opposed to violence. This is what we've, also women tend to be much less willing to support violence. So this is during stable times.
I'm sorry, did you say that women would be more likely to
Less.
support? Less likely.
Women are actually mysterious in that sense. They tend to be religious. They tend to support Hamas more than men, but tend to be much more opposed to violence than men, which is not consistent with the other theories.
Hamas has some socioeconomic issues, not only violence.
Yes, true. But they are, in general, if you are religious, you tend to support violence more than, but this is not true for women. And if you support Hamas, then you tend to be an Islamist, mostly, not everyone, but mostly Islamist. And they tend to be more supportive of violence. Now, when we try to apply this to women, we do not find this to be working.
Just a follow-up question on that. Have you broken down support for violence according to ages?
Yes. The younger you are, the more likely you support violence. So you're 18 to 22 are